Why do you hold crypto? Are you in it for the technology, or are you in it for those crazy gains? If it's the latter, then that's nothing to be ashamed of. That's what draws most people to crypto. But it does beg the question, why do we need crypto in the first place? Is it all about spinning the wheel in that altcoin casino and getting more dollars? Well, today I'm going to expose how terrifying traditional payment systems are and how they are consolidating power over your financial freedoms into the hands of governments and fat cat CEOs. All that's to help you understand a really important reason for holding crypto. I'll also reveal some worrying trends that could enslave us all in a dystopian world ruled by corporate oligopolies and oppressive governments. Sorry folks, I need to take this one. Hello, Mr. Lawyer? Yes, I'm actually in the middle of shooting another crypto video. Can this wait? Yep, I'll tell them that. Yep. So, apparently I need to tell you that I am not a financial advisor, and that means that everything in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Now, with that expensive interruption out of the way, I want to give a warm welcome to anyone new to the channel. Hello and welcome to the Bureau. This channel is your resource for the best crypto reviews, news, and insights. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, then you can have my thoughts on tap by smashing that subscribe button. If you want that all-important free refill, then flick that notification bell. That will let you know when this crypto guy has something else to share with you. And finally, a wise man once said that time is money. Well, in a crypto bull market, that couldn't be more true. That's why I've popped some handy timestamps below. You can use them to jump ahead to the sections of the video you're most interested in. So, what is the New World Order you should know about? Let's shine a light on it. To kick things off, I should briefly explain why digital payments are important. Put simply, those card payments and PayPal transactions that you take for granted drive commerce and the global economy. I mean, think about how much harder things would be if you had to send Jeff Bezos a handful of seashells or a load of cash if you wanted to get that hot item on Amazon. So yes, digital payments are super important for us to function as a society and to get the things we need. For example, think about the last time you paid with something like a bank card, PayPal, or WeChat Pay. I bet it was only a few hours ago. Sure, there are a ton of benefits with using all those types of traditional payment systems. It's okay to go for a jog and lose that bank card. All you need to do is ring up your friendly bank and ask them to cancel that card, or just freeze it on a banking app and get them to send you out a new one. You don't lose your money, and your money is safe. Easy, right? Maybe you bought that Bitcoin online for tens of thousands of dollars using PayPal, only to discover that you were sent a bit of metal stamped with the Bitcoin logo. It's all okay. You can submit that payment dispute to get your money back. Also, if you spend on a credit card, you can earn some pretty insane perks too. Shout out to all those credit card points hunters. Now, with all those types of benefits, I hope you can see why so many people are scratching their heads and wondering why we even have those paper rectangles that we call cash. Well, let's be honest, when was the last time you used a banknote to buy anything? Personally, I'm having a hard time finding anyone to accept my crisp 20 quid note with all this COVID stuff flying about. The thing is that this thought experiment of a cashless society turns out to be a real thing and not a bonkers idea cooked up by some academic in an ivory tower. I'm not making this up, folks. Sweden has made the pretty bold move to consign cash payments to the history books by March 2023 and be a fully cashless society. Those Swedes are doing that by introducing their own central bank digital currency, or CBDC, called the e-krona. That means every transaction over there will be digital. Now, it seems that many other governments and central banks agree that a cashless society is just the natural evolution of money. I mean, 70% of all central banks are involved in CBDC research of some kind. And if you want to learn more about the ins and outs of CBDCs, then you should watch my dedicated video on them. That's in the top right of the screen. So it seems pretty clear where the trend is going. In short, cash is pointless, and we should embrace the future of a cashless society. I mean, thinking anything else would be idiotic, right? Why not kick back relax and wait for that new era of a truly cashless society to come about. While you're doing that and sipping some soothing chamomile tea, I'm going to tell you how screwed over you are getting by using digital payment solutions like PayPal, WeChat Pay, credit and debit cards. So, let's move on to that fun topic, shall we? Let's start with those good old-fashioned credit cards, which give consumers like us all those loyalty points and perks out of the goodness of their hearts. Yes, you can benefit from them. However, here's the deal. There have been numerous studies about how consumers with access to large amounts of credit are more likely to use that credit and spend more. Logically, this all makes sense. I mean, if a normal person walks into a Louis Vuitton without a credit card, how many people can actually afford to buy that snazzy 1,000 quid man bag? However, walk into that store with a credit card and chances are that pretty much anyone could splash that cash, get those credit card points, and use that bag to carry around their Trezor wallet. I'm joking, of course. I would never suggest anyone buy an LV lad bag. Oh, and walking around with a hardware wallet probably ain't that safe either. But a fashion faux pas and cybersecurity are not your biggest problems. If you don't pay back that credit at the end of the month, then you're going to pay an insane rate of interest. That's a key way that the likes of American Express make money. Another positive effect for governments is that access to credit boosts consumer consumption in the short term. Pretty handy if you're only worried about a several-year term in office. But what is credit? Well, it's simply a mechanism of bringing future cash flows forward to today. So yes, that debt needs to be repaid later and means that long-term economic growth is hampered. However, most politicians out there don't really need to care about that, as they'll likely be out of office when the chickens come home to roost. In a way, credit cards are a sort of trap. I mean, back in my youth, if I was given a credit card with a £10,000 limit, then the chances are that this crypto guy would have partied harder than Fatboy Slim. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't get that credit card until I was a bit more financially responsible. If I had got into that debt trap, I might not even be here on YouTube today. But wait, you might say. Digital payments are not all that bad because we have debit cards. You get most of the functionality of credit cards with the benefits of cash, right? Use a debit card and you can only spend the cash you have. Yes, all that is true. However, there is a major drawback, and that would be merchant fees. Those are the fees charged by the Visas and MasterCards of this world to the merchants to accept your payment. So how big are those fees? About 3% and a 30-cent fee per transaction. Now, that may not sound like very much. However, Visa processes trillions of dollars in payments a year. Getting a 3% cut on that isn't too shabby. And practically speaking, this means that when you pop down to your local convenience store and buy that bottle of Coke for $2 on your Visa card, that shop owner pays 30 cents for the transaction and an additional 6 cents for the transaction volume. According to my quick maths, that's a cost of 36 cents to the merchant. In other words, 18% of that $2 sale has been taken by Visa. So for cheaper items, those Visa and MasterCard fees are brutal. So are these store owners just gritting their teeth and paying the extra fee begrudgingly? I'm afraid not. All they do is pass on that fee to the customer in the form of higher prices. And what all that means is that merchants are effectively already socializing the price of digital payments using traditional payment providers like Visa by charging the same inflated price regardless of whether you're paying by card or not. Now, I don't know about you, but as a customer, I want to pay the lowest price possible for the goods and services that I buy. This merchant fee problem that leads to higher prices is also true of the likes of PayPal. I shudder to think about how much in fees I forked out over to those guys in my lifetime. But wait, maybe those not-so-communist communists in China have a better solution with WeChat Pay. After all, no annoying card machines are needed for stores, and there are basically no merchant fees to speak of. That must be the perfect payment solution for a cashless society, right? Well, yes, WeChat Pay is perfectly fine, provided that you don't mind the Chinese Communist Party knowing every transaction you make. To put things into perspective, WeChat is basically China's version of Twitter, Facebook, Google Maps, Tinder, and Apple Pay all packed up into one app. Imagine if you were a slightly questionable government and had direct control over that. I wonder what you would use it for. Oh yes, I know, social control over your population. To give you an example of the dangers of a cashless society, you need look no further than Hong Kong. When protests there were popping off, a lot of people wanted to attend those pro-democracy gatherings. So, how to get there? Well, in a city as dense as Hong Kong, you're most likely going to use public transport. In Hong Kong, a contactless smart card called an Octopus card is used to pay for that train or bus fare. But guess what? People stopped using their Octopus card to move around Hong Kong during the protests. The reason why was the fear that the Chinese government could use that transaction data to determine who had taken part in a protest and most likely be rewarded with a one-way ticket to mainland China. So, those smart Hong Kongers turned to cash to ensure they didn't leave a digital trace of where they'd gone. But unfortunately, in a cashless society using only WeChat Pay, that anonymity simply wouldn't be possible. Step out of line and the chances are you'll be disappeared. So, in China, WeChat Pay could be a great solution if you completely agree with the Chinese Communist Party. If you don't, then the CCP can tap into WeChat and leverage one of the greatest government surveillance networks on the planet to catch you. Now, I know almost all of you will be holding crypto. Yet, how many transactions do you make without a Visa, MasterCard, a credit card, PayPal, or WeChat? I don't imagine it's many at all. The point here is that the vast majority of the world's payments are being processed by a small handful of companies, or governments in the case of China. It's an oligopoly of payment providers, if you will. But why is this silent rise of payment oligopolies a problem, and what's the value of a crypto alternative to all this? Well, do you remember that trend of a move towards cashless societies? Think about what that means for the likes of Visa and PayPal. In short, it will result in these companies having almost total control over financial transactions. Yeah, a move to a cashless society would make these payment businesses even more powerful. Now, it seems quite apparent that with all that wealth inequality happening right now, that capitalism does have some flaws. But, in my humble opinion, it is the best system out of a range of bad options. The thing is that this payment oligopoly has the potential to break capitalism itself if it is left to operate freely in a cashless society. The reason why is that capitalism is essentially a voting system. But instead of casting ballots, people vote with their wallets. So that means that people cast more monetary votes for popular items like a PS5 and fewer for things like my merchandise store, for instance. In a nutshell, that's how capitalism really works. However, payment providers in this cashless society have an opportunity to rig that vote. So how do they do that? Well, as private companies, they have the right to tell customers to get lost. A bit like what I do when I find scammers in my comments section. One of the best ways to demonstrate the power that the likes of Visa and MasterCard would have in a cashless society is by looking at online businesses that have been denied service by these payment providers. After all, it's highly impractical to send cash to an online business to pay for things. An example of that happening recently to an online business would be Pornhub. Now, no matter how you feel about pornography or the egregious videos that are sometimes uploaded, should it really be up to the likes of MasterCard to decide if that business succeeds or fails? Also, should these payment providers be allowed to disrupt that monetary vote which underpins capitalism? Put simply, if a business in a cashless society is denied service by payment providers, then they'll be completely excluded from the traditional financial system. Indeed, the only way for that business to survive would be to find a payment method outside of the financial system. Now, I wonder what solution that could be. Well, in Pornhub's case, they turned to crypto and added support for over a dozen cryptocurrencies. All that meant that Pornhub was able to continue receiving payments, and even better, they wouldn't have to pay those 3% merchant fees and 30-cent transaction fees either. Potentially good news for the connoisseurs of that type of paid product, as it will probably mean lower prices. Now, with that being said, I have to admit that I have not personally researched those Pornhub prices and compared them pre and post the Visa and MasterCard ban. This crypto stud can't be getting distracted from those cryptocurrency markets after all. So, there is one of the key values of crypto right there. In today's system, payments can circumvent those payment providers by using cash, at least for bricks and mortar businesses that are still allowed to operate. However, we need to be aware that these paper rectangles are unlikely to be an option forever, with that shift to a cashless society being ever clearer. So in that cashless world, what other reasonable alternatives are there to use apart from cryptocurrencies? Well, I honestly cannot think of any. Seriously, folks, we need to really value that alternative, because a lack of alternatives to the system means enslavement by the system. I don't know about you, but I don't really feel it's fair that these payment providers have this much power. So I now hope you can see why I think cashless societies are bloody scary. But things get even worse if we take a look a bit deeper into a really dystopian financial future. One recent bit of news that seemingly paves the way for a cashless society in the US would be the US regulator authorizing federally chartered banks to transact using stablecoins or even issue their own. What's interesting is that the Office for the Comptroller of the Currency, or OCC, made specific reference to the benefits of stablecoins when it comes to cheaper, faster, and more efficient payments. It's almost as if that US regulator thinks stablecoins are a great idea. Honestly, my take on this is that these types of stablecoins are nothing but a precursor to a fully fledged CBDC. But that's not all. We also have had disclosures from the Treasury Department that they are evaluating the benefits of a government-sponsored stablecoin, aka a CBDC. To be honest, folks, there is a lot more to this than meets the eye. But that's something for another video. Oh wait, I've already made one, and you can learn more about my stablecoin conspiracy theory by watching the video linked to in the top right. So, why do I think that this future cashless society will become even worse with CBDCs? Well, think about the excessive control, tax automation, and data collection that will be open to governments. It would be like WeChat Pay on steroids. Now, I'm no fan of private companies meddling with capitalism and our economic freedoms, but at least a company cannot send you to prison or confiscate your money on a whim. The government, on the other hand, can, and that's a massive potential problem for all our freedoms and liberties. Maybe you'll attend a protest that the government doesn't approve of. Then that government, which is meant to serve the people, can simply just round people up based on what they have bought with that government-issued CBDC. Not cool, if you ask me. The truth is that this dystopian nightmare isn't as far off as you may think. China has already started distributing the digital yuan. As a New Year's celebration, the city of Shenzhen is offering residents the option to take part in a lottery. So, what's the prize? Well, 100,000 people will get 200 digital yuan. That's about $31 each. So yes, the Chinese government is basically doing an airdrop and is already releasing its CBDC into the wild. The age of CBDCs is already upon us in some parts of the world. Let's face it, the CCP can do whatever they want, and they can just force a CBDC on their population because they say so. Things are a little bit different in the West. For a government to make sweeping changes like that, they generally need a reason to justify it. Now, I'm going to level with you folks. This is a bit of conjecture. However, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, never let a good crisis go to waste. What I personally fear is that global governments may use this pandemic as the justification to roll out their new CBDCs. I mean, the assault on cash can already be seen across the world. Take Australia, for example. No joke, a controversial law was proposed that would have seen a ban on cash purchases above $10,000. What additional punishments were suggested for breaking this law? Just a mere 2 years in prison. Yes, that law was never passed and seems to have been temporarily abandoned. But the point here is that there are people in government who are anti-cash, and all of this COVID stuff has meant that many people are afraid to use or accept it. That justification could be enough to sell the idea of a cashless society to the general public. But why could COVID be the thing that makes governments pull the trigger and roll out those CBDCs? Well, Last time I checked, governments were racking up astronomical levels of debt, and even with all those stimulus measures, we are seeing a depression on the scale never seen in living memory. Now, an economy in the gutter places the government in a bit of a pickle when it comes to funding public spending and keeping its popularity. Moreover, most of you probably will live in a country with near zero interest rates. However, I happen to think that interest rates are likely to go negative. This is the economic stagnation that has plagued countries like Japan in its lost decade. However, if cash is still a thing in a world of negative interest rates, people would rather hoard that cash than have to pay a bank to store it. That's probably seen as a bit of a problem for governments. So the question is, how do they avoid that outcome? Well, it's simple. You outlaw cash and swap all that money in the system for your very own CBDC. Then the government can reap all of those CBDC benefits like tax automation, deepen state control, and monitor its citizens' transactions. Now, I hope this never comes to pass, but if it does, it would spell the biggest assault on our freedoms we have ever seen. Now that is just my 2 satoshis on the silent rise of corporate payment oligopolies and government CBDCs. I'll let you judge if those fears are well-founded. All right, team, that's all I have time for today. But I do wish to share a few closing thoughts. Yes, crypto markets are looking rosy, and I'm sure many of you have made a tidy profit recently. However, in all that hype, it's easy to lose sight of just why crypto is so damn valuable. It can act as a store and transfer of value that operates outside the traditional financial system. That's a system that's run by payment providers which have way more power than most people think. This shift to a cashless society is happening, and I can see how it further consolidates power into the hands of a few. I thought it was really important to share that with you and warn you about the pitfalls of those CBDCs too. That way, if my fears come to pass, you can tell your family and friends what the deal is and tell them exactly how to preserve their freedoms. This crypto bull market we are in is obviously delightful. However, I smile to myself when my mates tell me about their cash-out strategies to fiat. I then proceed to tell them exactly what I've told you in this video. Then I ask them this one single question. If all this comes to pass, why wouldn't people cash out their fiat to crypto? Now that's something to think about indeed. That's it. My warning on those payment overlords and those CBDCs. I'm interested in hearing your thoughts though. Do you think my fears are overblown? Are you fine with those who hold the reins of the current payment system? Hit me up below. And also, while you're checking out that video description, I recommend you head over to my socials page. It's got all the links to my social channels where you can access content and tips that I share nowhere else. It's completely free, so no excuses. And finally, if you got value from this video, then help this crypto guy achieve his mission to become the biggest crypto YouTuber this year. You can cast your vote by smashing that like button. And don't forget to subscribe or I'll delete your Pornhub account. I bet you thought that was all. Well, I always leave the best for last. And because you made it to the end of that video, I have something to share. This is my weekly email newsletter. It's my way of succinctly crystallizing my views on the crypto markets for the week ahead. And nowadays, I also share unique insights as well as juicy coin tips. So, keen to be a part? Well, you better check out the description where I've linked to a sign-up form. All you need to do is enter your email address and hit submit. Be sure to confirm your email, and that's it. You are now locked, loaded, and ready to receive my next email. Oh, and it's weekly. I hate spam, and you won't be getting any from me.